vertical lines and horizontal lines, and more importantly, their equations. Okay, so again, this is ultimately regarding the the work that you're supposed to be doing this week and last week. Anytime you see, some vertical lines or horizontal lines, you're gonna automatically think of certain equations, okay, and how they're supposed to look like. Okay, and again, it tells you here, see horizontal, and it gives you options. So again, we're going to be looking at that stuff. So starting off here, it says, or not that it says, but I'm going to tell you here, a vertical line obviously is a line that goes up and down, just like your y-axis. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw another one here. I'm just going to draw this line right here. I'm going to let that be my vertical line. If you notice, if I was to try to find the slope, meaning that I tried doing rise over run, and I was to pick two random points from here, there's a rise, but there's no run. And so we are essentially dividing by 0, right? Because rise over run. So your slope, anytime we're looking at something like this, our slope, which is rise over run, we're dividing by 0, and so we say it's undefined. It's going to be super important that you recall, because if you see that, you automatically know the slope is undefined, and that could sometimes give you the answer right away. But again, I just want you to keep in mind, slope is undefined, and look at how the line looks. From there, sometimes they give you equations. What could be the equation of this line, they would say. Well, keep in mind that as I go to the right from the origin, my x value is positive. Okay, and anytime you have a vertical line, okay, your equation will always be x is equal to a number of some kind. In this case, I would probably say that x is equal to 4 or 3, something, okay? And that something is usually whatever number is here, okay? And if that was a 3, it's 3. If it was a 5, that's 5, and so forth. So again, please remember that. If it's vertical, the slope will be undefined, and the actual equation will be x is equal to whatever number the line is on. Now for horizontal lines, well, obviously horizontal is like if you're laying down, and a good example of a horizontal line would be, one that is just like this, just laying down. It could either be on the top or in the bottom or right on the line, doesn't really matter. So right there we have the equation of our horizontal line. And again, this time, if you were to pick two random points, there is no rise, but there is a run. So it's 0 divided by a number, and that will always be 0. So anytime you have a horizontal line, the slope will always be 0. Okay, that's what your slope will always be. Your slope will always be 0. And anytime you're looking for the equation, it's going to be a y is equal to a number of some kind. And the reason for this is anywhere on this line, the y value, if you think about the coordinates, it's never going to change, but the x will. As I go to the left, the x becomes, bigger, a smaller number technically, but it just changes its magnitude and it's negative. As I go to the right, it becomes bigger. Okay, so again, I'm just going to put a random number here. If that was a 5, that would be a 5, and so forth. So just please remember that. Horizontal lines, y is equal to 0 with a slope of 0. Vertical lines, x is equal to the number with an undefined slope. Okay. Now, there'll be times that they use the words parallel and perpendicular. I want you to keep in mind that a vertical line vertical lines, vertical equations, they happen to be parallel to the y-axis, but they are perpendicular to the x-axis. Okay, so again, don't forget that. Again, this is your x-axis, and it's anything perpendicular to it. In this case, the y-axis will be, be a vertical line and whatnot. It's the opposite for the other one. If I have a horizontal line, technically speaking, a horizontal line is parallel. Think about it. It's parallel to the x-axis, but it happens to be perpendicular to the y-axis. Again, very important that you keep that in mind. All right, guys. Don't forget. Again, this is all you really need to know. But I'm just gonna add emphasis to it. If it's vertical, it's gonna be a line that's straight up and down with a slope that's undefined. The equation will always say x is equal to. These equations, they're always parallel to the y-axis and perpendicular to the x-axis. If it's horizontal, okay, again, the line's going to be, laying down. The slope will always be 0. The equation will always be y is equal to a number. These lines are always parallel to the x and perpendicular to the y.